the Wellingborough and Kingswood by-elections. Labour score a double victory over the Conservatives. I'm going to read into this more from the BBC, you guys. Let's go. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are in the world. This is Reganelite here with an article from the BBC with the headline of the Wellingborough and Kingswood by-elections. Labour score a double victory over the Conservatives. Labour have inflicted 2 by-election defeats on the Conservatives, overturning 2 majorities to take Wellingborough and Kingswood. So guys, while you're here, make sure you hit the like button and share across social media so others are notified of this video. So, if I'm absolutely honest, guys, I don't think we were expecting any other results. There was the talk of Ben Habib actually potentially taking the seat, but which we'll look into the numbers obviously as we read into the article. But just an initial thoughts on this by-elections. I don't think we should be surprised. I think these were expected, and the fact that the Conservatives didn't really put much, if any, effort into these seats just kind of shows how little care they have about these by-elections. And by-elections, yes, okay, there is a general election coming up either this year or early January, but they still matter and people are still making their voices heard. And this is despite the fact that we still have voter ID, despite Reform UK obviously trying to gain grounds as well. And the things that have been happening with Labour over the last couple of weeks with anti-Semitism becoming a topic of contention for Labour, they've still been able to win these seats quite comfortably. And both these constituencies are basically sending a message to the Conservatives is that we have had enough, that we are fed up and we want something different. But there is obviously still quite a few people in both these constituencies that are still voting Conservative, and that's where there are cause for concerns that I still have, because why are they voting Conservative when we have talked numerous occasions the amount of damage that they have caused to the country? What is it that makes them want to vote Conservative? And it's about winning. It is about, in a way, winning over hearts and minds as well. But there's still quite a strong amount of people who still believe in the Conservatives, and that is a cause for concern. Now, it doesn't mean to say that what's happened here means it's going to happen across the general election. I know many polls are predicting that, but we shouldn't jump to conclusions. I think it's really important not to jump to conclusions. It is an indication of what may happen at the general election. And I have been very critical of Labour over the last week or two, obviously. But I would say for Keir Starmer and for the Labour Party, this is great. This is good for them. It shows that people, it's not so much, I think, people wanting to vote for Labour. I think it's more of a case of they want the Conservatives gone. More in that case, because people still don't exactly know what Labour are standing for, but they would rather vote. But if they have to choose between Labour and the Conservatives, people are going to vote Labour because at least they're getting something different, whereas the last 14 years, it's not been very great for them. So in that regards. So let's read a little bit into this. So Labour has inflicted 2 by-election defeats over the Conservatives, overturning 2 majorities to take Wellingborough and Kingswood. So in the Wellingborough, the party overcame a majority of more than 18,500 to take the Northampton seat. That's a massive swing. 18,500 swing. 28.5% was the second biggest from the Tories to Labour in any post-war by-election. See, this is once again to highlight, these swings that have been happening. There's been a lot of by-elections where the massive swings have gone from Conservative to Labour. And you really need to understand is that no Conservative seat is safe at all. None at all. None of Conservative seats are safe. There's also I was listening to the Two Davies show yesterday at the time of this recording, and there were pollings that were indicating as well that whatever Conservative MPs in Scotland that are left, they're going to be wiped out at the general election as well. That's just I know it's probably 1 or 2 seats up there, but it still counts for them. So it looks like they might get wiped out from Scotland completely. But in terms of specifically England, obviously they have some seats in Wales, but this, the term safe seats is I really do hope that the most vile Conservative MPs that we have in the House of the Parliament, I really hope that we can kick them out. I really hope we can knock them out of their seats. The ones who have been in safe seats for a long time, and convincing those constituencies, the really strong Conservative seats, the likes of Jacob Rees-Mogg that reside in, overturning those seats and kicking those kind of people out would really make everyone's day. Getting rid of some of the most vile MPs, I think that would be a real massive difference if that was possible. But it reminds us all, guys, that no matter what constituency you're in, it can switch. In Kingswood, where the Tories previously had a majority of more than 11,000, there was a swing of 16.4%. Labour leader Sir Keir Starmer said the country was crying out for change. They are crying out for change. I think we all agree that the people are crying out for a change. But whether they want that change from you is another question. Let's be clear about that. They can see now the Labour Party has changed his old BBC breakfast. It's a different party to the party in 2019, and they can see what we got to answers to their problems. No, it's not about the majority of people are not voting Labour because of Labour's changing, or because of what Labour's saying, or because of Labour this or Labour that. People are voting. The majority of people who are voting for Labour are voting because they are sick and tired of the Conservatives. That is the absolute truth. And there are many voters who are proud Conservative voters and are just going to choose not to vote. There are many Conservative voters who despise Labour and will vote Reform UK. There are many Conservative voters who don't want to do nothing, don't want to cast their vote towards the Conservatives or Reform, and will very likely may vote for the Lib Dems or the Greens, for example. There's a lot of swing voters out there, because many who have been cast iron Conservative voters all their lives are really looking like switching their allegiance because of the way the Conservatives have been handling things. The Labour leader, Sir Keir Starmer, said that Labour was securing the support of Tory switches and people who have never voted for the party before. But he added there is always more work to do. The Conservative Party chairman Richard Holden told the programme it was not a great result for his party. No, you don't say. You don't say. I mean, they didn't even put any investment in whatsoever to these. They really didn't. However, he said the local context of the by-election was not ideal, with the poll in Wellingborough triggered by the ousting of disgraced former MP Peter Bone and in Kingswood by the incompetent Chris Skidmore standing down less than a year before a general election. He also pointed to low turnouts, which he said were substantially low on the last general election. Let's be very clear. There's going to be low turnout. There was always going to be a low turnout in the by-elections, and there's going to be a low turnout. There's going to be some low turnouts in the general election, not because people don't want to cast their vote, but because people won't be able to vote, because some of them won't have ID, or they will forget to bring their ID, and they will be turned away at the polling booths. So let's be clear about that. People forget about voter ID, so that will play a factor into the general election as well. It's really important to remember that. The turnout in Kingswood was 37% of registered voters, while in Wellingborough is 38%, both around half the figure in 2019, but close to the average for by-elections in this parliament. The result means the Tories have suffered 10 by-election losses this parliament. 10! More than any previous government since the 1960s. With a general election due this year, the latest defeat is a major blow for Prime Minister Richard Sunak, whose party is trailing Labour in the national polls. In Wellingborough, Labour's Green Kitchen, a former London councillor who works for the charity sector, grew up in Northamptonshire, secured a comfortable majority of 6,436. Meanwhile, the Tories suffered their biggest drop in vote share in any by-election since at least the Second World War. Ms Kitchen said that the people of Wellingborough have spoken for Britain. This is a stunning victory for the Labour Party and must send a message from Northamptonshire to Downing Street. I didn't listen to a full speech, but I've listened to a little bit of it this morning. I thought, it came across very, very powerful message for the Labour Party on behalf of them. The by-elections came after Tory MP Peter Bone was kicked out by voters in a recall petition following his suspension from Parliament over bullying and sexual misconduct allegations, which he denied. This was not very good. And the candidate that went in Peter Bone's place was his wife. And the wife never even got endorsed by the Prime Minister. And if you're not even going to get endorsed by the Prime Minister, you're not going to make any attempts to kind of, fight for the seat. It's just kind of really, they never even fought for the seat. They never even really went out there to talk to voters and all that, and yet they still gained voters. It's mind-boggling. It's mind-boggling. Mr. Bone had held the constituency since 2005, increasing his majority since then to turn it into a safe Tory seat. His party, Northamptonshire councillor Helen Harrison, was selected by local members as the Tory candidate to replace him. Ms Harris told the BBC that she would be back and fighting again for the general election. The Tories also faced a challenge from the right with Reform UK, which achieved its best by-election results since it rebranded its previous name, the Brexit Party, in 2021. The party came third in both by-elections, picking up 13% of the vote in Wellingborough and 10.4% in Kingswood. That's really good for a party like Reform to pick up those numbers. That's very concerning for Conservatives, for them if they want to try and get, if they're going to try and hold on to seats. That's really bad for them in terms of the general election. A source close to the Conservative critics of Mr Sunak said Labour was storming to a huge victory and we have an insurrect party on the right polling above 10%. The cue, the former Brexit Party leader Nigel Farage's intervention 2 months out from a general election, and we're facing an extinction level event, as the source added. So here is, I'm sure you can see it quite clearly, guys. This is the Wellingborough by-election, the top 6 parties there. So right at the top there, Ken Kitchen with 45.9% of the share there, 19.5% swing, changed since 2019. Helen Harrison, 24.6% there, negative 37.6% swing. Reforms UK's Ben Habib got a 13% in there. So he's roughly around about just over 3,000 votes. I saw he actually picked up. All things considered, whatever you might think of Reform UK, their messaging is working, and that's a huge amount of voters to Ben Habib. That's a huge amount of voters. 3,000 people in Wellingborough voting for him. There's of cause for concern without a shadow of doubt. Lib Dems Anne Savey Gunn 4.7%, Independent Murray Hawkes and 37%, and the Green Party's Will Morris 3.4% there. But obviously, it's a Labour and Conservative battle, really. The Wellingborough one. And Labour secured a majority of 2,501 over the candidate Sam Brolly in the South Gloucestershire seat of Kingswood near Bristol. In his victory speech, Damien Egan, who resigned as the mayor of Lewisham in London to fight the seat where he grew up, said 14 years of Conservative government had sucked out the hope out of our country, and he blamed Rishi's recession for leaving people paying more and getting more less. So this is obviously the Kingswood by-election results here, guys. So Labour, Damien Egan, 44.9% of the share. That's 11.5% swing to Labour. The Conservative Sam Brolly, 34.9% of the vote. So it's still quite a huge chunk of people in Kingswood still voting Conservative there. It's a 21.3% swing. It's a huge swing, but still, it's still a strong. It's still like very much people still vote Conservative no matter what. And Reform Party's Rupert Lowell, 10.4% of the votes there. So coming in third there with 10% gain, 10.4% gain there for them. Green Party's Lauren Francis, 5.8%. Did get gains of 3.4% gains there. Lib Dems Andrew Brown, 3.5% loss, and UKIP, which was 0.5%. I don't know why people would vote UKIP. There's not really any benefit to voting for them these days anyway, but there you go. The Conservative MP and former Cabinet Minister Sir Jacob Rees-Mogg, who represents the nearby seat of North East Somerset, said the Kingswood result was not as bad as I expected. So it's not as bad as you expected, even though you still lost it. This is a man that will try to spin anything into a positive for the Conservatives. He told the BBC a lot of Tory voters appeared to have stayed at home and suggested more could turn out at the general election, which he said focuses people's minds in a different way to a by-election. Mr Rees-Mogg said the Tories needed to focus on appealing to voters who had turned to Reform, adding that there was a lot of common ground between the two parties. He insisted that support for Mr Sunak was solid and by-elections didn't change that. However, the result further piles pressure on the Prime Minister following the latest official figures on Thursday, which showed the UK economy has fell into recession at the end of last year. I think it's important to highlight as well when looking at the Kingswood by-election here, if you can see here. So Rupert Lowell with 10.4%. If you add that on top of the Conservative Sam Bromley there, that actually would mean that would actually be a Conservative hold if reform did not had run in the Kingswood by-election here. There is a very strong chance that the Conservatives would have held this seat. And that shows you that there's still much love for the Conservatives, regardless of how bad things are going out there, guys. So this I wanted to just show you guys just a bit of history as well. So this is from the wikis. I'll put the links in the description for them. But this is the Wellingborough UK Parliament constituency. But I just wanted to show you down here, guys. So this is the history of the Wellingborough one. So swinging obviously between Labour and Conservatives over its history. Glenn Kitchen obviously today, but obviously Peter Bone, Conservative and was independent for a period of time, but he's been a Conservative there for a very, very long time. The last time they had the seat was back in 1997, obviously the Blair years. So that's how long ago it's been since it's been back in Labour's hands. So obviously in terms of their history, it's swung back and forth quite a few times, but Peter Bone has had held that seat for a long time there. Obviously, we looked at the numbers there for there, but if you can see, obviously from in its history, Peter Bone's always had quite a strong lead. That was 2019. Peter Bone there, obviously 32,222 votes. That was. This is 62% and 4.8% swing there in terms of other candidates there, and then obviously in 2017. Again, another strong shouting for Peter Bone, despite Andrea Waltz twice trying to beat Peter Bone and not really being able to gain ground on both occasions there. But even then, that's in 2017, and then in 2015 again, like no one could hold a candle in 2015 to Peter Bone there. Obviously, Conservatives were in quite the high times there. And in 2010, again, Peter Bone, a strong position there, as you can see there, in terms of the voting counts there. A bit further down, obviously, 2005, when he first won the seat, just from Paul Skidmore in 2005, just won it, and they had held it all the way until today. Glenn Kitchen there with 13,844. So the Kingswood UK Parliament constituency, guys. Let's just have a look at the bit of the history here. So it's been a mixture one here. Obviously, Damien Egan of Labour there, and from 2010, pretty much all the way up till today, has always been a Conservative seat. The last time it was in the hands of Labour was in 1992. Roger Berry of Labour. So we just look here. Obviously, this is obviously from yesterday's result, which we've looked at already. Back in 2019 in Kingswood, Chris Skidmore had 27,000 votes there, as opposed to the closest opponent, which was Labour's Nicola Bowen-Jones with 16,000 votes there. So nowhere near Chris Skidmore there. And then in 2017, it was still very much comfortably in Chris Skidmore's hands, despite nearly 20,000, shall we say, towards Labour, but still 26,000 voters for Chris Skidmore, very much in control. Yes, Labour did make gains at that time, but still, it was still very much a strong Conservative hold. In 2015, Chris Skidmore, still 23,000 there. Obviously, was it the same person? No, a different Labour candidate, but still nowhere near taking it off Chris Skidmore, despite the fact so many other no one else getting really close to them there. And then in 2010, Chris Skidmore defeated Roger Berry and beaten Roger Berry, who was the previous MP for the constituency of Kingswood, winning it by 3,000 or so votes, from 19,362 to Roger Berry's 16,970. So there's a little bit of history there. So Roger Berry's obviously had he's had a long history here of being the quite a bit of history there as being the candidate as well. So yeah, interesting to say the least. Some interesting numbers. Hope you found them interesting, guys. So What's my final thoughts on this? I mean, it's, don't take by-election results for granted. The vast majority of people in across the country, particularly in many places, are angry and fed up of what has been 14 years of failure. But there are still many pockets of people, regardless of how bad things are, people will still vote Conservatives. And it's about trying to win over those hearts and minds. Yes, the turnouts were low. I'm not arguing that the turnouts were not low for some of these areas. However, it is still a cause for concern. And we need to try and win over these hearts and minds in these places. Yes, we overturned what were strong constituencies holds, but if Labour are to gain ground, if we want to tactically outvote the Conservatives, and I say the word we because I do want the Conservatives gone. We want the Conservatives out of power, guys. However it's done. Personally, I want a hung Parliament, because then it would hold Labour to the fire when it comes to certain things such as proportional representation, which would something that I think everyone would like, for example. But if we have to choose between a majority Conservative or a majority of Labour at this time, I would take a majority of Labour. Yes, I know. I've made my point of how I feel about Labour, but these by-elections tell me that there's still a lot of numpties out there who think voting Conservative is good for the country, and we need to find out what are we doing, what is Labour going to do in order to hold on to these seats? What are Labour going to promise in these constituencies that are going to convince people to vote Labour and stick to voting Labour at the general election? These are questions and challenges that need to be put to these people. And it's going to be a tough battle for sure. There's going to be a lot of seats as well that Lib Dems are going to have to try and Lib Dems can take, that we will want the Lib Dems to take as well. Lots to process here. There's a lot more obviously to come. There is another by-election still to come as well. So obviously, I think it's Rochdale one, which would be one to talk about as well. But what did you guys make of these by-elections? Because I think it's no gimme whatsoever for Labour in any way, shape or form. I don't think, despite the fact we were expecting them to win them, I still think they don't think they're gimmies. Nothing is certain. Nothing is certain, guys. We don't know when the general election is called. I know some people are saying it might be in May, might be in autumn, might be in November. Let's not jump to conclusions. We can speculate all we want, but we don't know that for certain. But guys, what do you think of these by-elections? What did you make of Wellingborough and Kingswood's results, the numbers and statistics, and the history that we have, and the history on both of them? Let me know what you guys' thoughts are on them in the comment section down below. Do you think Labour have any chance of holding on to them at the next general election? Do you think perhaps they're going to remain in Labour's hands? Share your thoughts and ideas, guys, because it really does help. If you can, hit the like button, it'd be greatly appreciated. Share it across social media so others are aware of this video, and subscribe because it really does help support the channel. And if you want to financially support me in the work I do here, you can do so by becoming a YouTube member for as little as 99p, or joining me on Patreon or Rumble for exclusive content there. Thanks so much for watching, guys, and I hope to catch you all very, very soon.